You guys don't feel like recapping the Dolphins game, right?
No.
Not particularly.
Skip it.
All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to the Vikings Territory Roundtable. I'm your host, and I'm joined by four of my friends who also just happen to be authorities in Minnesota Vikings football. We got Drew Mahowald with us. Say hello, Drew. Just so everyone knows who you are. Adam Warwas is back at the VT Roundtable after a long absence. We've missed him. We got BJ up there.
Sorry, I coughed right in the middle of that. My bad.
BJ is knee deep in a fantasy football draft too. He just missed his pick, so if you see him kind of zone out for a minute or two or unexpectedly scream because he missed his pick, that's why.
What he said.
Of course, we got Belisle down there in the bottom left-hand corner. So anyway, guys, thanks for joining. This is the final episode before the start of the regular season. We're finally here. I know we say football is back like all the time, basically after every milestone during the offseason, the draft, free agency, training camp, preseason. But this time it's real. We are just like, I think this is going to post tomorrow, so one day away from the start of the NFL regular season. We did recently play the Miami Dolphins. We're not going to talk about that game at all because we got smacked in it, and it was the fourth preseason game, so whatever. However, we do have a ton of other stuff we're going to talk about this episode. The 53-man roster was recently basically posted by the Vikings. We got some cuts we're going to talk about, including the big cut, Alex Boone, the upcoming game against the Saints, and we're going to wrap up the episode with some bold hot fire predictions from you guys for this regular season, as well as some record predictions, just to get everybody kind of on the record so we can make fun of you when we're undoubtedly all wrong. So before any of that, a quick programming note. We've been talking about them quite a bit, but we are going to be doing these post-game shows live after every game this regular season. So next Monday night, right after the game, you can come on here and you will find us live recapping the game. If you subscribe and enable notifications within YouTube, you'll get like a little update to your phone. So as soon as we go live, you'll get notified. It's pretty awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun. I honestly can't wait for it. We've been hyping it up a bit. So make sure you join us and make sure you subscribe so you know when all that's happening. All right, so let's jump right in. So let's start off talking about the 53-man roster. Kind of your takeaways from who they cut, who got to stay. I think probably the best place to start off, just to kind of get it out of the way, is talking about Alex Boone. So as you all know, Alex Boone was released, kind of a surprise move. I don't think we kind of talked about him last episode being on the rocks, but I don't think anyone actually predicted that he was going to be cut. It was rumored, I guess, that the Vikings basically asked him to take a pay cut. He said no, and he was released as a result. Nick Easton, who we this offseason picked up from the 49ers, is going to be starting at left guard now. So I guess I just want to ask you guys, like, does this move make sense to you? What do you think about Alex Boone being released by the Vikings? What do you think that does to our O-line depth? Let's start with my man, who I haven't heard from in a while, who's going to unmute right now. Adam, what do you think, man?
I think it was definitely a surprise, and rightfully so. I mean, for Rick Spielman or any general manager to give up on that big money of a free agent signing just little over a year after signing him, and after one season with the club, obviously that's going to be a pretty big surprise, especially when, as far as we know, any major injury or off-the-field incident wasn't a part of it. That being said, I kind of like the move because Alex Boone was brought in to be part of the solution, and he just sort of in 2016 turned into more of the problem. He played on a bad offensive line, and I don't think he played that well. I know some people would disagree with that, but even if he wasn't a huge liability, he never elevated the guys around him and never seemed to dominate. And that's just kind of the simplistic take on that. And I'm okay with that analysis. But I also like the message that it sends to the rest of the team. that it doesn't matter how much you're getting paid. It doesn't matter what your pedigree is. You are expendable. We will get rid of you and replace you with someone better. And also, if you're a young guy on the team, you do have a chance to supplant the veteran and earn yourself playing time and earn yourself a spot on the starting roster. So I don't hate the move because I never loved Boone. And I don't mind the message that it sends to the rest of the team.
Does anyone hate the move to release him? Drew hates the move. Drew, why do you hate the move?
I said this exact same thing on the last show. I think Alex Boone is by far the best left guard on the team. We could say what we want about a very small sample size of Nick Easton in preseason performing at a solid level. But as a pass blocker last year, I thought Alex Boone was really good. If you're going to dismiss him after one season like that, I think that's obviously he was a big money contract or big money free agent signing and everything like that. But he was at least the second best offensive lineman on the team, even now when he was cut. So to just get rid of him like that, and I understand from what I heard, he wasn't going to start anyway, which I don't agree with myself. So I get that part of it, but I think he should have been starting regardless. And I really like Nick Easton as a backup guy who could play all three of those interior spots. So you're losing depth by getting rid of Boone here, and you're losing a very solid offensive lineman who obviously he's not perfect and he hasn't quite lived up to the expectations, but he's still been one of the strengths, if you call it a strength, of this offensive line.
What'd you say, Adam?
I didn't get it out, but I just being the second best offensive lineman on the 2016 Vikings is like being the second best singer on a Backstreet Boys tribute band. I mean, who cares?
I was waiting on that metaphor, Warwas. I knew that you were going to come up with something. Backstreet Boys tribute band isn't bad. It's good.
He didn't get the job done, and none of them did, but either did he. He was brought in to be a part of the solution. And
but shouldn't you try to keep on what at least you have that's not awful?
No.
Really?
Yeah, and then you get to play football with Christian Ponder or Tavares Jackson for 2 years.
Well, okay, my whole thing is there's some poetic justice in this. Think back to when they got Easton from the Niners. Who'd they trade away? Gerald Hodges, right?
Yes.
And Zimmer apparently he had a huge problem with Gerald Hodges. Wasn't a good fit in the locker room, was a decent player. I mean, he made some plays for the Vikings. Didn't get it done off the field in the locker room. And Nick Easton comes in, and he's kind of the flip-flop for that guy. And then, what was that, 2015? And then 2 years later, same thing. Alex Boone is a guy who is pretty good on the field, but doesn't fit kind of the future mold of what they want to do. And doesn't seem like he's a good fit in the locker room with Zimmer. And kind of taking a step back, I think Zimmer's whole approach to football is very old school and very big on camaraderie and big on chemistry and relationships and people getting along. And if Boone isn't that guy, then he's got to go, even if he's okay. I mean, I'm not necessarily mad about the move because I actually think the Vikings like Nick Easton, and I think they see a lot of potential in him. And if you can offload a contract like that and come away with $3 million net, I think you can eat the dead cap, and you can say, I think we're better set for the future than we would be with this loudmouth in our locker room. And I'm not saying I think he's a loudmouth, but that seemed to be the perception of it out there.
He is. I mean, he is. It's not necessarily a knock on him. You can be
it's what he is.
You can be a vocal presence / loudmouth and also be positive. I still think that Brett has the best point on this subject that I've personally seen. I think it was on the last show, Brett, or it was in Slack or something like that you said essentially in so many words that Boone is a great guy to have on your team when you're winning and a horrible guy to have on your team when you're losing. Yep. And, dude, I really buy into that theory. I subscribe to that completely, dude. I mean, that's so – knowing myself as a person that's pretty vocal, I tend to do better when we're doing well. And then the shtick isn't nearly as fun when we're not doing well. So I understand what happens with Alex Boone. He's a rah-rah guy that, a lot of swearing, a lot of kind of profanity, the whole rhino thing. I mean, he's a cartoon. And if if you're in a situation where the guy is really bugging, I gotta imagine he was bugging TJ Clemmings. I mean, Clemmings is playing the worst left tackle in possibly NFL history, and he's got the loudest, most outspoken left guard next to him. Dude, we talk all the time about TJ Clemmings' development. How good could Alex Boone have been for his confidence? Seriously.
Maybe Boone will end up in Washington.
Boone ended up in Arizona.
So they ended up with both Mike Iupati and Alex Boone from 2 years ago, where the free agent class was Iupati, Boone, and Kelechi Osemele. And at the end of the day, Arizona gets 2 of them, and I don't know how much better they even got.
But they basically got the Niners offensive guards from 2015.
No! I missed my – oh, sorry.
You missed his pick.
Sorry.
We said that was probably going to happen. All right, look, I want to say something really quick. I appreciate the shout-out, BJ, because I did say that. With that
further shouting out, you've said it since before Boone even signed his contract in Minnesota. You did not like the idea of Alex Boone coming here for all the reasons that BJ just recited. Yep. Credit where credit is due. Brett's been on that since before the ink even dried.
With all that being said, I don't understand letting him go. There has to be something else in this situation that we don't know about, and unless Boone threw an absolute fit and asked to be released or said he wasn't going to play once he was told that he needed to take a pay cut and he wasn't going to be a starter, I don't understand this move, because you have no depth along the offensive line. And even if you're not going to start him and you don't think he's your best guard, which he probably is, he's still a very competent backup at an area of weakness, and you've already paid him the money, and you're going to lose $3.5 million in dead cap space because you cut him. So I honestly don't get the move, and to me, it is another black mark on Rick Spielman's ability to put together a competent offensive line for this team.
Dramatic.
That is not over dramatic.
Austin, I'm with you. I think that is a dramatized take, but I don't think he's wrong either. I mean, it might be a little bit over the top considering where we are right now, but at the same time, how is
that over the top? I don't understand how anything I said is over the top.
You can't say no depth. I don't think it's a black mark when the team clearly has its own reasons. They have their reasons for getting rid of a guy.
DJ, who's Nick Easton's backup?
Well, Danny Isidora probably, or I guess
Searles.
Jeremiah Searles, left guard backup.
That's right. Yeah, I made the same mistake. I made that same mistake on the podcast too.
You can't call it no depth. I just don't get.
Okay, there are people on the roster behind them.
I'm willing to say that Jeremiah Searles represents no depth. I'm okay with that.
I just feel like it's an over.
You might be right, Brett. Brett, you might be right on this. I think that you make. I think it's dramatic to say what you said, but you're not wrong. It's definitely another mark on Spielman's agenda with the offensive line.
You can't give out that kind of contract and then cut him after 1 year, and it's somehow not a mark on.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I agree with that.
I don't think it's a black death mark.
I didn't say black death mark.
Well, you did not say death mark.
But it's for what it's worth, it is quickly becoming a death mark, whatever the hell a death mark is, but that is what this is becoming, right? I know we weren't scheduled to talk about the revamp, rebuild, whatever the offensive line here, but I mean, this is another major fail. Think about how many major fails there have been since 2012 with this offensive line. And I'm someone that has defended Rick Spielman's scouting ability for offensive linemen because you look at guys like Brandon Fusco and think that he got tremendous value in the 6th round. But at the same time, you miss on Alex Boone, you miss on Matt Khalil. I mean, I don't know what happened with Matt Khalil, but he was a surefire hit prospect, and they missed on him. I mean, it's been a revolving door at both tackle and guard since Bryant McKinney and Steve Hutchinson left. And that's a long time to be really bad along the offensive line when you're trying to run the football on top of that.
Yeah, well, I'm not trying. Okay, I'm not trying to make excuses for Spielman because I think he does have a problem drafting offensive linemen. But when I take a step back and I say the whole thing about him not fitting the scheme anymore, don't you think some of this, the butterfly effect of Teddy Bridgewater getting hurt and Norv Turner getting pushed out, doesn't some of that fit into this?
I like that movie. I like that movie drop. Sorry.
Doesn't some of that fit into the narrative of Alex Boone not working with what they're doing anymore?
I don't think. I think
Possibly,
that point is fair, but I don't think. I keep seeing people say that Boone can't zone block. Guys, he can zone block. That's how he torched us with Carlos Hyde week 1 in 2016. Straight zone blocking, outside zone to the outside or counter plays.
Yeah.
That's how they beat us. So Boone clearly can run an outside zone or inside zone blocking scheme. He doesn't need to block the guy in front of him.
You know what the issue is?
I'm sick of hearing that.
They saw Reuben Foster blow him up and said, that's enough.
No, I told you what the issue is. The issue is Boone flipped the table and said, I'm not taking a pay cut and I'm not going to be a backup. I don't want to play for this team anymore. And the Vikings said, okay. I guarantee you within
that's how
a week.
I understand that it went down. For one thing, the Vikings were going to start Easton for whatever reason. He didn't like that. And then they came in and said, we want you to take a pay cut. And he said no. So then he walked. And then they were fine with that because...
Do we blame him for that, though?
Issue or not, but
no. But what if
we don't blame Alex Boone for saying no to taking a pay cut, right?
Oh no, we don't. We don't.
I'm just curious. I'm not accusing. I'm simply asking.
That's what happened. He wanted out after the circumstances of getting benched and then asking for the pay cut and whatever. Then from there, he then kind of instigated the whole thing, is from what I understand. So
go ahead, Adam.
I mean.
I'm pondering.
You looked like you wanted to say something. That's why I called on you.
If he took the pay cut, who leaves? Who walks? Danny Isadora?
What do you mean?
Who? Oh, probably, it would be. It's got to be
Aviante Collins ain't on the roster.
Aviante Collins.
Right. You want to talk about lack of depth on the O line? Aviante Collins is your backup right tackle.
Okay, but in fairness to that, Rashad Hill is a swing tackle. We know he can play right tackle, and we know he'll be the third guy in there. I'm not trying to devalue your point there, Brett, because there definitely is significant issues with the depth at tackle. But yeah,
I'm trying to devalue it just a little bit. I mean, we can say depth is an issue at any position, can't we? Can't you say quarterback is a position of depth? That's an issue? Can't you say linebacker? Can't you say defensive tackle? I mean, you lose any of your starters, it's an issue.
But if you have guys that are good behind them, then it's not a depth issue.
Of course, you can say quarterback is a depth issue. It's a depth issue for every team, but a unit as a whole, I don't think there's any unit as a whole on the Vikings defense or on the Vikings team that is as shallow as the offensive line unit.
Okay, I'm just going to say what I think happened. I think Boone thinks he's worth more than he actually is. The Vikings said, you're washed. You need to take a pay cut. We think you've gotten worse. He says no. He flips. A couple F-bombs get thrown. They say, you know what? Fine. We don't need you. We like the young guys on the roster. And maybe us fans don't like the young guys as much as Alex Boone, but the Vikings clearly like their young guys more than they like Alex Boone and think they're going to be better players at some point.
That's what I said.
I'm sick of the whole – never mind.
You're sick of me already?
No, I'm not sick of you.
All right, so
I don't like overreacting.
So Alex Boone goes to the Cardinals. Just to put a bow on this thing, I'm willing to bet any of you guys right now $20 that within a week we hear an interview with Alex Boone where he throws the Vikings front office under the bus.
I'm not taking that bet.
I'll take it.
Let's go. Awesome. We already got enough bets going this year, man. You want me to take more money from you?
Right. I say he doesn't say anything.
All right, so let's move on from Boone. Let's just talk about, I guess, your guys' takeaways from these roster cuts. So were there any other surprises to you guys as far as players that they decided to keep, players that they decided to cut? Go ahead, Drew.
Well, for one thing, we talked about Aviante Collins. Keeping him over Willie Beavers will puzzle me for a long time.
And where did Willie Beavers go?
But I also thought
New England.
Which means what?
Chances are he'll win a ring, and he'll probably be a key factor in that championship team. But I also thought Emmanuel Lemur making the roster was kind of a surprise. I didn't think he would survive that, and letting go of Edmund Robinson. I didn't have a tremendous camp by any means or preseason, but I just thought they would go with the upside there instead of the guy who has stuck around and kind of reached his peak. But at the end of the day, Lemur is on the team, I guess. So.
Okay. So those were your two surprises, Collins and Lemur. I was also surprised with Lemur. Wasn't he dealing with an injury too? I thought that might weigh into it as well. Like I thought he got injured in the 4th preseason game.
maybe that's why he hasn't played well. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, if that's the reason why, then he's been injured for the entire time that he's been with the Vikings.
I just thought I remember him getting injured in like the final preseason game or something. So I already had my doubts about him making the roster, and then when he got injured, I thought that kind of sealed his fate. Drew left really quick because we were having some audio issues with him. Hopefully that gets resolved when he comes back. Okay, so Aviante Collins, we talked about him. Lamore. What about you, BJ? Surprises?
I mean, Collins is the obvious surprise, or well, I should say Boone is the obvious surprise. But then, Collins was. Drew and I talked about this on the last podcast that he's a guard, he's not a tackle. I don't understand the move there for sure.
What podcast?
It's the About the Labor podcast. It's new.
Oh, okay.
But
only 103 episodes in. New.
I guess to go out on a limb and not repeat the same things that you guys are probably going to be saying too, I personally was surprised that Caleb Jones didn't make a 53-man roster, period. Not only did he not make the Vikings 53, but he wasn't claimed on waivers. And I saw a ton of potential from Caleb Jones, both at Arizona 2 years ago and with the Vikings this camp. So I thought that he was deserving of that number 6 wide receiver spot with Minnesota. Obviously, Rodney Adams, I think Drew could testify to this, was kind of on the brink of getting cut. But I just thought Caleb Jones was the better receiver, and I thought that he deserved a spot on the Vikings. So while I'm not necessarily surprised, I guess I'm disappointed in that move.
Right. So for those who don't know, the wide receiver depth chart's looking like Diggs, Thielen, Treadwell, Wright, Coley, Adams. Correct? I didn't miss anything. And BJ missed another pick.
No, I got it off. I got Doug Martin with the.
Ooh, that's a good pick.
In the 8th round, right? That's not bad.
That's pretty good.
Fantasy football.
That's pretty good. All right, Adam. What about you, man? Cuts, keeps, anything that surprised you from the final 53?
I think the most surprising move was the trade they made to acquire another cornerback.
Oh, shoot. I completely
Tremaine Brock.
Yeah, I think bringing Brock in adds a fun little wrinkle at the end of what was a very fun competition in training camp and preseason. And by fun, I mean excruciatingly painful.
Okay, that's what I hope you meant.
But I think that's the most interesting. I guess you would qualify as a keep, the fact that they went out of their way to bring in a last-minute corner to add to this secondary. I'm not sure how everyone feels in terms of what it says, but it's telling in some way that they did that. Either Brock is just that good that they couldn't pass up the opportunity to bring him in, or they went out shopping because Mackenzie Alexander or someone else was underperforming and it was time to light a fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. I completely forgot to put that in the notes for today that we made that trade. So 7th round pick, right, is what we gave up in next year's draft. Yeah, I think that's kind of, I guess, indicative of how the team feels about Mackenzie Alexander, right? I mean, I've heard you guys talk about it on the About the Labor podcast. I think it says less about Trey Waynes as a lot of people thought it may initially, and it says more about that slot position.
That's what Matthew Collar was reporting.
Right.
On ESPN.
It seemed, I mean, it appeared that way, and then Collar went in and, put some real analysis and some actual firsthand feedback to that point. I don't, like I said, I don't want to continue repeating stuff so we're not regurgitating all the same information, but I just don't think Trey Waynes is all that bad. I mean, he was getting beat like a number 2 cornerback. That's what off coverage isn't an easy thing to play.
Look,
he's a press corner. That's what he excels in. He excels in 7, 8, and 9 routes. And he was getting beat on slants and, short outs, stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't think that Waynes was that bad. I don't think that he himself, injury aside, if he's healthy 100%, I don't think his play merited bringing in another cornerback. Now, Mackenzie Alexander, on the other hand, the only time he shined during training camp was against third stringers in Miami.
He was also getting beat by Pierre Garçon, who is like a pro at running those inside slant routes.
Right. I mean, so that was a good measure of where he's at for sure.
And he was always in position. And those are the types of plays where if that ball's thrown on the money and you have a receiver that's good enough at running that route, it's really, really difficult to defend that. So I wasn't holding those little slant routes against Trey Waynes at all this preseason.
No.
I do think the move.
Go ahead.
I think the move says more about Alexander's performance and his inability to step up and fill the shoes left by Captain Munnerlyn. But BJ brought up a point about Trey Waynes and the health issue, and I feel like Trey Waynes gets injured 7 times a game. And Brock has made his money. Brock has made his money in the NFL on the outside, and to me, it's almost more reassuring that he's going to be there in the event that Waynes went down with injury to play on the outside, or move Alexander to the outside where he made his money in college.
Flexibility and versatility. It's all there.
Yeah, that depth on the outside gives me more warm and fuzzies than any of them playing nickel corner.
Where does Terrence Newman fit into all of this in your mind, Warwas?
I think he plays on the outside. I mean, I've heard some speculation.
Are you worried about him? Are you worried about Newman after his preseason? Does his play during the preseason come into your better feelings about bringing in Brock?
I'm not any more worried about Newman than I have been the last 2 years. Eventually, Father Time's going to catch up with that guy. I know it's cliche to say that, but eventually it will. And one injury, basically, he's done. And Terrence Newman is applying for coaching positions. I've heard some rumblings of him getting some looks at safety. I don't know how to feel about that necessarily. But I think you could do a lot worse, speaking of depth like Avante Collins, you can do a lot worse than Terrence Newman as a backup corner on your team, even at his age now. That being said, I think a move like trading for Brock and drafting Alexander are moves for the future, and I'm more interested in seeing those guys progress than seeing Terrence Newman get meaningful snaps if he's starting to decline.
Yep. Okay, Austin, what about you, man? Any surprises?
Surprising cuts?
Or keeps?
It's not really a keep, but it led to cuts with Ben Gedeon winning the weak side linebacker spot. I mean, when that dude was drafted, we said he was going to be Heath Farwell, a backup linebacker who plays special.
I said that.
Yeah.
I still kind of feel that way, to be honest.
Yeah. I don't know how much he's going to play, but again, going back to the butterfly ripple effect, he wins that job and he kicks out Edmund Robinson, who I thought could be a special teams guy, could play weak side linebacker. He's off the roster. And I think another surprise is Exum, turning it around this offseason and kind of solidifying himself as a backup safety and even a backup nickel. I think keeping him, I didn't think they were going to keep that many safeties. They kept Harris, they kept Curse, they kept Exum. And I think more so than a cut or a keep, just Exum kind of being that guy really helps this team, I think, in the secondary.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I'm surprised none of you guys brought this up, especially you, BJ, because you were the one that was pointing it out. The biggest surprise to me was the fact that there are how many rookies on this 53?
Oh, yeah.
11 rookies on the 53?
10 now.
10 now after Hodges.
Oh, because what's going on with Hodges? Does anyone actually know what?
Right now he's on IR, and he can either reach a settlement with the Vikings for whatever percent of his contract to become a free agent, or he can remain on IR for the season and come back next year.
Okay, and then 3 of those 10 guys are undrafted guys that made the 53. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know how that. I haven't gone back and looked how that compares to previous years or other.
That's probably the most surprising aspect of it all, to be honest. I mean, as surprising as it is to get Boone cut, think about what you think, your perception of an undrafted free agent when he comes into camp. Most people don't even know who their undrafted free agents are, let alone care. I mean, you can just look at the traffic on our articles when we're tracking, undrafted free agents. People don't necessarily care about them because they always think they're just going to be camp bodies. So the fact that 3 guys came in, Eric Wilson, Deshaun Bauer, and Avante Collins, and, put enough on the Vikings evaluation to prove that they have potential moving forward to warrant a 53-man roster spot and basically to keep them away from other teams it says a lot about the Vikings being able to scout late-round talent, first of all, It says a lot about Rob Brzezinski to go out and get his guys after the fact as they're the priority undrafted free agents. And it says a lot about the Vikings coaching staff to coach these guys up in 3 months and make them 53-man roster ready. So I think that's probably the biggest surprise. And honestly, it's a great reason to be optimistic about this team if you're not feeling too optimistic right now.
Can I play devil's advocate really quick?
Go for it.
Do you think it says anything potentially about the roster as a whole maybe not being as strong as we thought it was if 10 rookies and 3 undrafted free agents made it? I'm not saying I think that. I'm just throwing that question out there.
Warwas, you want to handle this one?
Yeah, I think you got to look at the mass exodus, as Red Ellison's dad called it at the beginning of this offseason.
Shout out to Red Ellison's dad.
Yes. Ricky. Hey. Did I get his name right? Is it Ricky?
Ricky Ellison.
Ricky Ellison.
We know he's watching.
But no, I mean, you got to look at the players that left. It's not like they were superstars that we're trying to replace here. We're replacing Matt Asiata. We're replacing Rhett Ellison. We're replacing, help me out, who else left that
Trettel
doesn't.
That Adrian Peterson guy.
Justin Trudeau. Adrian Peterson was replaced by Delvin Cook. He wasn't replaced by an undrafted free agent.
That's true.
I just think you had job creation at the onset of this offseason when you let all those guys go. And it bred competition, and some guys won. And some of those guys were drafted in the 6th round, and some of those 6th or 7th rounders got beat out by undrafted guys. And, that's the way it goes unless you're going to go out into free agency and buy replacements for everybody you let go. And they let go, 11 or 12 players at the end of the season. And these guys stepped up and earned it. Whether or not it'll amount to better careers than your Asiatas or your Red Ellisons remains to be seen. But those were the best players according to the Vikings front office. And I don't think it says anything about the guys that are in front of them other than they're not as good or they weren't beat. I mean, and they got young guys nipping at their heels in future off seasons.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So have that just like every other year.
I agree with you. I just wanted to maybe float that out there and see if that was it. Because it kind of crossed my mind, and then I had to shake it out of my head because it was a stupid thought. And I just wanted to see if maybe anyone else had that.
I think it was I think it was Terrell Newby that beat out Adrian Peterson for that roster spot, by the way, not Dalvin Cook.
Right. Were you going to say something, Drew, or no? No? You're good? Okay.
No. I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
I agree with the Newby.
I think the Vikings are the deepest team in the NFC North, hands down.
Are you
I've been saying that.
You're supposed to save that for your bold take, hot fire take section.
Well, no, I'll come up with something new. I've been saying that, all off season since the draft ended. I think we're the deepest. We're maybe not the most top end talented, but I do think we're the deepest, and I think that's going to serve this team very well throughout this coming season.
Okay, so let's move on really quick. I just want to practice squad. So just kind of highlighting the practice squad. Like you said, BJ Caleb Jones did end up making the practice squad. Fedi Odenegbo, drafted 7th round this year, right? He also made the practice squad, as well as Elijah Lee. And then there was a guy, Kyle Sloter. I know we kind of talked about him a little bit in the chat because he kind of caught my eye. A lot of people seem to be really excited about it. A lot of Broncos fans seem to be very upset that they brought in Brock Osweiler and let this guy go because I guess he was showing off in preseason and looked really good. I think the Vikings paid 3 times the minimum practice squad salary in order to get him. So they obviously really like him. And then I'm sure he's probably going to step in as a replacement for your guy, BJ. Who is he cut or is he on IR?
He's cut.
He's on IR.
He's cut though. He's expected to reach a settlement.
Thomason said he's going to be gone. So
okay. Well,
that sucks.
Yeah. Sorry, BJ. If he only hadn't kicked that door, it might have been so different for him. All right, guys, so we're going to move on. Let's talk about the Saints. So a few things I want to get through here, but I kind of wanted to start off with something that BJ pointed out as ludicrous, and I didn't think was as ludicrous, so maybe it will stir up some controversy here. Yeah, I'm assuming you guys saw Adrian Peterson's quote with the Saints media. So just so everyone knows out there watching, he says of the Vikings, of course I want to stick it to him. I want to stick it to everyone we play. But going back to Minnesota, playing the Vikings, yeah, I want to stick it to him. Any thoughts on this? Is anyone a little upset about this? Does anyone care? No,
don't care. Who cares?
Okay.
I mean, what do we expect him to say?
Well, here's my thing, right? Is like Adrian Peterson has never been good at saying the smart thing or the right thing, right? And he's throughout his career, he's had a tendency to word things the wrong way, where if he had just maybe said it a little differently, it doesn't piss everybody off. I understand his sentiment, and obviously, people say, well, of course he wants to win. You want to win every game, right? He's a competitor. If he doesn't come out and say he wants to beat the Vikings, then what is he doing? Sorry, Austin. I don't like the look on his face, though. I hope everything's okay. It didn't look good. But anyway, I think Peterson could have been like, shout out to the fans in Minnesota. I love the guys. I enjoyed my time there, but yeah, I kind of want to beat them, or But it seemed like the way he said it, just the tone that he had, it seemed like he still has some ill feelings towards the organization, and this game means a little bit more to him because he wants to come home and show us that we made a mistake by letting him go. And I just think for someone that, in my opinion, the Vikings did nothing but stand by him when they didn't have to, and paid him a ridiculous salary. When no one else in the NFL would do it, I guess I don't understand his ill feelings towards the Vikings, and I think he could have avoided this whole situation had he just worded it a little better.
I don't think it's ill feelings towards the Vikings at all. The quote, I guess I didn't actually watch him how he presented it, but I can't imagine he's actually deep down thinking I hate that organization. Right? I do not like that organization. So here's the thing.
When is Adrian
did that
ever
really surprise you though?
Person? Yeah, he's always been individualistic. Like I don't.
Right.
Why would all of a sudden he start hating the organization? Like he's always been about his progress, his rewards, his time with the Vikings, his legacy, his beating the kid with the stick. All of that is Adrian Peterson and Adrian Peterson alone. I don't understand why all of a sudden we expect him to just be this great team player. This is the same guy that didn't learn how to block for 10 years. I mean, what did you expect? That's what I don't get, is what did you expect him to say? It's like the Duck Dynasty guy. This is a joke that Bill Burr made one of his specials. The Duck Dynasty guy, what did you expect him to say? Did you expect him to be this really progressive guy that wasn't remember when he said something about lesbians or gays or whatever the hell it was, something to do with the church? I mean, what did you expect him to say? The guy lives out on a boat in the middle of a pond. And he's 65 years old. What did you expect him to say? Adrian Peterson's the exact same scenario. It's ridiculous to me. He's the most uber-competitive individual I've ever seen.
I guess what I'm hearing from you guys is like, this is par for the course for Peterson, so it doesn't bother me at all. Right. And I guess I'm just saying, like, yeah, it's par for the course, but he's still an idiot,
thing, though.
And he could have.
So okay, he's gonna return to U.S. Bank Stadium to Minneapolis, and some of the things he said over the past few years, obviously he hasn't said them the right way and hasn't presented him in an ideal fashion. So he's going to return after 10 years with the Vikings, and arguably a top 5 player of all time. You can put him up there probably. Kept this team relevant for a decade, and he's probably going to get quite a few, a fair amount of boos. If not, you might hear boos more than you might hear cheers. It's a very realistic possibility, and has kept this franchise more or less afloat when he's been on the field. You can say what you want about him off the field. He's not perfect, but for this team's success on the field and what the fans actually, for the most part, care about on the field, this dude has kept the Vikings in the news, noteworthy. So I think at the very least he deserves a standing ovation. And any boos I would be very disappointed in.
Absolutely. Fans and the Vikings organization basically owe him for the stadium that they're now in. I mean, I think without Adrian
Exactly.
Peterson, they probably don't get a new stadium because you don't have a face of the franchise that can sell jerseys and put people in seats. I mean, obviously, Teddy Bridgewater came and he was that guy. But
You're actually kind of right about that.
But Adrian Peterson was that guy. So I feel stupid for even talking about this for as long as we've talked about it. In fact, I kind of feel stupid for bringing it up. But I'm sensitive, as Adam will tell you, and these sorts of comments hurt me. So I wish Peterson would choose his words better.
Can I say one thing?
Everyone's reading too much into it.
Yes.
Can I say one thing?
Yes, Austin.
He's the third string running back on a team that's going to be trash this year. He's washed, and he's not going to stick it to the Vikings. I mean, honestly, who gives a crap about him anymore?
You just basically guaranteed that he's going to come in and run for 200 yards Monday night, by the way.
I'm going to co-sign with Austin, what Austin said, so it'll be a code jinx, because I think he's going to get 8 yards.
Yep.
I said 9 months ago. You can go back on this very show. I said 9 yards.
Okay.
And I'm sticking.
So
he's finally going to get those 9 yards that he was missing in Minnesota.
Oh, no.
Shut it down.
All right. So
everyone's reading too much into Adrian's comments, and it's the preseason, so he's thinking I need to average 188 yards a game if I'm going to hit my 3,000 yards this year. So, yeah, I need to stick it to the Vikings just like I need to stick it to the next 15 teams. That's the way Adrian Peterson is wired. Every year, whether he was a Viking, a Sooner, or now a Saint, he's going to say the same stuff because that's how he prepares for a football season.
Sure.
And I really think you're reading too much into it.
He's going to look really good in camp, too. He's going to look in really great shape.
I play Austin this week in fantasy football. We open up the season. Yeah, I'd love to stick it to Austin. You bet.
I'm hurt by that. That hurts me.
Who wouldn't?
Wait, so Peterson's on your roster, and you're also predicting he's going to get 9 yards? Are you still starting him?
No, I don't have Peterson. I'm just saying that's what you say when someone asks you that question.
Okay.
Yes, I'd love to start him. Yes, I'd love to be there.
Okay.
All right. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're Adrian Peterson or Teddy Bridgewater or anybody else. They're all going to have the same candid response. It wasn't anything. Who cares?
Did people freak out like this when Randy Moss left too? I mean, I know to some extent people don't forgive Randy Moss's departure, but guys,
no blasphemy.
How many? I just want to. I'll end it on this. How many marriages of 10 years do you know that end well? That end civilly? Because the Vikings are basically Adrian Peterson's ex-wife.
If it's like
his sixth ex-wife, but
if it's like a sugar daddy marriage, then.
I mean, it's not going to end well. If you get divorced from someone you spent a decade with, and they basically say, we don't want you, we want the young fox. Yeah, you want to stick it to them. Are you out of your minds?
That's fair.
He just got replaced by the best Florida State running back in history.
That's fair. I think it's funny, though, that we've said who cares 4 times, and yet we're still talking about this topic.
Right.
Just to show you that people do care, and it's going to be... The world cares, and it's going to be the biggest talker, obviously, headed into Monday night. But let's talk about some more. Let's talk about some things other than Adrian Peterson in this Saints matchup. Are there any battles, any matchups that you guys are interested in going into this game, Drew?
I like. I mean, a lot of people are going to look at Xavier Rhodes versus Michael Thomas. I like Trey Waynes versus Ted Ginn. Because I feel like Ted Ginn is a very good matchup for Trey Waynes and what Waynes does well. First of all, Ginn has had trouble catching the football, which could help. But what I'm saying, or I guess what I'm looking at, is Ginn is a straight line route runner, meaning he runs primarily 7, 8, 9 routes, which is what Waynes is really good at covering. So I'm curious to see how Ginn is used as a with Willie Snead out. If he is used on some, short, quick hitting routes, some slants, some curls, that type of thing, or if he is kind of kept in his primary skill set with those deeper routes. Because if he is, Wayne should have a really good game. So that's what I'll be looking for. And again, I like Rhodes to shut down or at least contain Michael Thomas. So if they keep Ginn as a primarily deep threat receiver, I think the Vikings can shut down both their top receivers on day for Drew Brees.
Yeah, it's kind of fortunate that, like you said, the Vikings won't be having to face Willie Snead, especially when the person that would be guarding him is someone that you either have not been happy with through preseason, Mackenzie Alexander, or someone that just got to the team a few days ago in Tremaine Brock. So I think that's kind of lucky that the Vikings kind of fell into that situation. Anyone else? What sort of matchups? Austin?
I got two, if that's okay.
Give them to me.
Number one's going to be Riley Reif and Cameron Jordan. I think you open up the season with an underrated defensive end, good against the run. I think he had 17.5 sacks the last 2 seasons. Kind of your first test for your premier left tackle that you brought in free agency. Can he protect Sam Bradford? I don't think the Saints defense is very good outside of that front seven. I don't even think that front seven's that great. But they got a couple good names up front. And then second, I want to see if the defense can stop. The Saints have a good passing attack, fine, but I'm more worried about things like screen passes containing Alvin Kamara. I don't know how to say it, but either way, the guy that I wanted the Vikings to draft, and I'm glad they didn't because he got Dalvin Cook. But anyway, defending screen passes, that seemed to be a problem for the team in preseason. They had trouble with it last year, so those are kind of the 2 things I'll be watching.
Yeah, those are both good. What about you, Adam?
Yeah, I think one of the things that bothered me most about the defense last year that I'm hoping is improved is the run defense. And really, despite us just bagging on Adrian Peterson for 72 minutes, I'm not sure that a team has a better trio of running backs in the NFL than the Saints. And if there is one, it might be the Vikings. But I look at these 3 running backs, and regardless of how New Orleans' average offensive line plays, at least in my opinion, average, they should be a test for this kind of revamped front seven that's got Jaleel Johnson and some other players in the mix that should lead to a more stout run defense, and that's what I hope to see. And I just want to see that matchup overall. I want to see us stop the run and then get after Breeze and then have our defensive backs in a good position to make plays when Breeze is under fire, because that is Mike Zimmer's defense realized to the fullest. And that's what I think we're going to see this year. I really genuinely do. That sounds like homerism and optimism and everything, but I really think that the talent and the depth is there to see that for most of 16 games. So I'm excited to see that, and I think the big test is right away in week 1 with these 3 running backs.
It doesn't matter who's in the Vikings secondary because the Vikings front seven is going to destroy Breeze, I think. So, BJ, what about you, man?
I've got 2 as well. First one, I think probably the most important matchup in the game. I think it's probably the difference maker here is Ryan Ramczyk and Everson Griffin. Ramczyk, obviously the left tackle from Wisconsin, a first-round pick. He's filling in for Teron Armstead, who has been one of the better underrated left tackles. He's injured. Everson Griffin, obviously a crafty vet that has all kinds of different moves and finesse and power. And he's going to give everything. He's going to give Ramczyk everything he can handle right from the get-go in his career. And obviously, if you can get some hits on Drew Brees, that's the difference between keeping this vertical offense silent, or I shouldn't say silent, keeping it contained versus, allowing him to air it out for 400 yards. Keeping in mind that the Vikings are playing, Drew Brees is historically very bad on the road, but the Vikings are playing inside at US Bank Stadium, so he probably won't see the issues that he's seen playing outside in the past year. So that's the primary one that I think is really important. And just for me personally, I think that Sheldon Rankins will be a really fun matchup to watch against Pat Elflein and Nick Easton. I mean, we just went over how Pat Elflein and Nick Easton are guys that we don't necessarily trust yet, that we're optimistic about. And Sheldon Rankins is a very talented interior pass rusher that, like Everson Griffin, can come at you with power and finesse as well. So they're going to get their money's worth for sure there. I think that's going to be a really important battle for keeping Sam Bradford upright and keeping the Vikings offense, allowing the Vikings offense to play with Drew Brees and the Saints offense. So those 2 trench matchups that, Austin brought up the trenches as well. I think that's it's the difference in a lot of games. And I think that in terms of controlling the tempo and controlling a high-octane vertical attack, controlling the trenches is probably your number 1 key for the game.
I was looking this up while you were talking because you were kind of talking about Drew Brees splits, home away, in domes, outdoors. He's played the Vikings 4 times, 71% completion percentage, almost 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 110 passer rating. 3 of those games were in New Orleans. One of them was in Minnesota. It was in 2011. And he had an 80% completion percentage, 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions.
That was the 2011. Never mind. I was going to say that was the game coming off of the NFC Championship. But.
And actually, I'm sorry, and I didn't even include the NFC Championship because that was just regular season.
Right.
So, yeah. So he's he's had the Vikings number. Hopefully, it's different Monday. Okay. So we were going to talk about basically how do the Vikings win this game, how do they lose it, but there's still a little bit we got to get through. So I'm just going to go around really quick and get your guys' predictions for this game, so we can move on to the next topic, wrap up the Saints. Let's start with you, Austin. What do you think?
You know what? I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think the Vikings defense is good enough to shut down the Saints. The Saints are known to have a few stinkers every now and then. I don't think the Vikings offense is going to be up to speed just yet. I think it's going to take some time to get Dalvin Cook going, to get that offensive line working together. Give me 21-14.
Okay.
Vikings.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll be a homer with it.
Drew?
I'm kind of along the same lines as Austin, where I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game, and it's mostly because of the Vikings dictating the game more than the Saints. So I have 24-19 Vikings. I think the Vikings pass rush will get to Drew Brees with the help of Rhodes and Waynes locking down again and Thomas.
Okay. Adam?
Yeah, 20-17 Vikings. I think the defense is primed. It's Drew Brees. Things will happen. The Saints are going to put up some points, but I don't think it's going to be ungodly. I have faith in this defense. But unlike Austin, I think Dalvin Cook is going to be the key here, and you're going to see him on display right out of the gate. And he's going to be the playmaker that picks up the yards and possibly even puts points on the board.
Okay. BJ?
I think Dalvin Cook's going to be a factor too, Adam. I think that him attacking Stephon Anthony out of the backfield, a guy that's struggled in coverage in his couple of years with the Saints so far, will be a big factor and a difference maker for the Vikings as well. I've got the Vikings winning this game. I don't know. I think score predictions are stupid. They're going to win by, 27-17. Sounds good to me. 10-point spread.
I didn't ask for score predictions, by the way. You guys just offered those. So that's on you.
We're stupid.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that because I feel like you're just randomly picking things out of a hat, basically.
That's exactly what I just did. Yeah.
All right. I guess for the record, I'm gonna give mine, and I'm not gonna include a score because I haven't put a ton of thought into it. But I think the Vikings are gonna get beat, and I don't think it's gonna be particularly close. So.
Oh my God.
I know nobody wants to hear that, and I feel bad for saying.
I love it. I love this. I love this. This was me last year.
But it's just this gut feeling that I have going into this game. I think all of the circumstance kind of leads to a typical Vikings dropping the ball in the first game of the year. What are you trying to show?
Where you told us that next on the agenda was final score predictions.
Oh, okay. Well, come on. My bad. You don't got to call me out mid-episode like that. That's kind of...
Listen, I won't be at the game, so it won't be a stinker. How about that? Because I'm clearly a curse when I go to games.
Yeah. I hope I'm wrong, but I just think, I don't know, I think it's Drew Brees. I haven't liked the way this Vikings defense has looked, so I have some concerns. I do think the defensive line will get to him and kind of shake him up a little bit, but I haven't liked the way the secondaries looked. And I think Drew Brees is still going to find a way to put some points on the board. And I just don't see the Vikings offense, like Austin said, at a point where they can compete with them yet. So,
if this game was in New Orleans, I would be frightened.
Yes.
But I'm not.
But to me, the fact that it's in Minnesota and Adrian Peterson coming back makes it more frightening. But maybe that's just because I'm superstitious like that.
One rush, one injury.
Yeah,
not going to play again.
I hope I don't want to say I hope that's right because I don't want to wish injuries upon Peterson.
He's washed.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, we're going to wrap up this episode with some bold, hot predictions. I'm asking you guys to basically give me some wild takes on things you think could happen this 2017 season. And then I'm also, once you finish your bold hot take, I'm going to ask you for your basically your regular season record prediction. We did an article at VT not too long ago where we everyone gave their predictions. You can give the same prediction, or if it's changed a little bit, but just provide your prediction and why. So I'm going to go the opposite way around the table. I'll start with you, BJ. Give me your hot take, your Elmo Fire GIF take.
Dalvin Cook rushes for 1,500 yards, all-purpose yards.
Okay.
So I'll say
all-purpose yards. So receiving, rushing.
All right. I mean, he's not going to be a return guy. So I'll say 1,200 rushing yards, 300 receiving yards, and a combined total of about 8 touchdowns for Dalvin Cook. I think that he's going to be phenomenal this year. I mean, I'm staying on brand here. I've been talking about how I think Dalvin Cook's been great the entire offseason. I'm going to stick with that take. I'm going to get the Vikings going 10-6. Haven't wavered from that either. I still think this is a very good team. I think that Adam brought up a great point. This is probably the deepest team in the NFC North. You think about what happens to the Green Bay Packers, the Detroit Lions, if their quarterback goes down versus if our quarterback goes down. Obviously our season is in jeopardy. The Vikings season is in jeopardy if Sam Bradford goes down, but this team is a defense-first team, whereas the Lions and the Packers are, they need their quarterbacks to compete. So I think this is a quality team that's going to make the postseason, double-digit victories. I think that everyone's going to have to eat their words after this year.
You're only saying that because you just drafted Dalvin Cook.
What's that?
You're just saying that because you just drafted Dalvin Cook.
Better rookie season. Adrian Peterson, Dalvin Cook.
Oh.
Well, let's just look up the stats.
Based off my bold take, the answer would be Dalvin Cook, right? I mean, Adrian Peterson had a great rookie season. I believe he was offensive rookie of the year that year too. But
Peter. So if Dalvin Cook gets your stats, Peterson still had a better rookie year. He had 1,341 rushing yards.
Rushing wise.
Yeah.
268 receiving yards. He had 12 rushing touchdowns and 1 receiving touchdown.
I'll stick with it. I'll stick with Adrian. As much as as we've been trashing him this episode, he's still a Hall of Fame back, one of the best in Vikings history, one of the best pure rushers of all time. It's hard to compete with that type of a rookie year. If anyone can do it, it's Dalvin Cook.
That was in 14 games, by the way, too.
Yeah.
He was not handed the keys, kind of like Dalvin Cook is.
Chester Taylor.
That's true.
He had to sit behind Taylor. I mean, they got him in the game, but he was eased into action.
Taylor went down week 1.
He only started 9 games.
Peterson was returning kicks to start that year.
That's right.
That's true.
That was crazy.
So I think that you go with the Hall of Famer here, but Dalvin Cook is going to be elite. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you guys got him on your fantasy teams.
I might. Can't really remember at this point. I have too many. Adam, what about you, man? You've been kind of dropping hot takes all episode, but
it's going to kind of go with BJ here. But it's a part A and a part B answer. Part A is I think Sam Bradford beats the NFL's single season accuracy record, and I also think that Dalvin Cook wins Rookie of the Year because that is a match made in heaven. You got the checkdown king, and you got Dalvin Cook, who just looks like, even if he only lasts 3 years in the NFL, that's going to be a fun 3 years. I just think that's a match made in heaven. I think Bradford is going to be using him as a safety outlet, and I think Cook is going to be fun in space, especially against teams like the Saints that aren't well equipped to deal with someone like Dalvin Cook that's already on the second level with the Sam Bradford pass in his hand.
Okay. How many yards does he put up in his debut, Adam? Cook.
All purpose?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll go 188. That way he's on his way to.
I was gonna say 150.
I was gonna say about 120.
All right, just so I can nail you down on something, Warwas. Do you actually think Bradford's going to have a good year? Because what you said could still be true, and he could still have a not great season. So
what do you mean still have?
Well, he could break the accuracy record and still have a poor year.
Yeah, he could, and I think some people think that's what he did last year. I don't think that was the case. I think he was dealing with the hand that was dealt up there at the offensive line and all the injuries and everything.
You're supposed to be you're supposed to be team gloves, Adam.
No, I'm not. I've said since the beginning, the Vikings. What about Vikings history has fans thinking that having two good quarterbacks on your roster is somehow bad?
I'm not trying to get into Teddy.
You guys are nuts.
All right.
It's awesome that we have two good quarterbacks. One can play next week and one can't. So let's root for the one that can.
Yes, I'm all behind that, 100%. What's your record prediction?
11-5.
11-5. All right. Drew.
I said this before in a previous episode. I have Adam Thielen surpassing 1,200 receiving yards this season. And I think that, I especially feel a lot better about this because in camp and in preseason, he has been the slot guy. They've taken Stephon Diggs out of the primary slot role, and they've moved Thielen inside, which will only get him more targets. And I believe I'm still kind of factoring in Stephon Diggs' health and missing a game or two. That seems to happen. So I think Thielen and that rapport he built with Bradford towards the end of last season will kind of leak into this season, and Adam Thielen will become wide receiver 1 on the Minnesota Vikings, and he will be a fantasy asset for a lot of teams, including mine. So I like that, and my season prediction, or my record prediction, is 9-7, and we'll squeak into the wild card.
Okay. Real quick, I want to ask you. So Thielen is the Vikings' number 1 wide receiver this season. You're assuming he's going to have more yards than Diggs?
Yes.
Okay. And you said your record prediction was 9-7. Okay. And what's your skull scale right now?
6.5. I got it. It was from
what's
6.
What's your blood type?
I don't even know. It was 6, and then Tremaine Brock was brought in and moved up to 6.5.
Oh, okay.
So.
All right. Austin, fire take time.
I've got 2. Can I give 2?
Yeah.
Okay. First one, Vikings not only sweep the Packers in the season, they sweep the NFC North. I think it's going to happen. It's been a while. I would book that. Second one is Teddy Bridgewater never plays another down for the Minnesota Vikings. And that's it. And they're going 11-5.
Sorry, did you guys hear Austin say something? No?
Wait, you just kicked him off the show for that?
No. I wouldn't kick Austin off the show for saying something like that about Teddy Bridgewater. Don't say that about me. I would never do that. Sure Austin obviously had some internet connection issues right there.
Yep, exactly what happened. That's why I think it's going to happen. I know that's a future prediction, but I think the Vikings sweep the NFC North because of the best team in the NFC North, and I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is going to play for the Vikings.
For the record, Austin's
your Teddy take is not that hot for what it's worth.
Well, no, it is hot for what it's worth. And for the record, Austin is thinking with his wallet, because what he's not telling you is that we have a bet about this for $100. So
he has a bet because he believes that.
No, but I'm saying the bet is further reinforcing this asinine idea he has in his head that Teddy Bridgewater.
I don't even think he wants to play for the Vikings again, and that's just my team.
Come on.
I don't know. Might see him in Miami, New England.
God, you are.
Never know.
Arizona.
That's still my. What's your prediction, Austin?
Pittsburgh.
My record prediction is 11-5.
I can't believe you're making me end the episode on that note.
11-5 is positive.
No, well, your Teddy take ruined everything in this episode. I may just cut out.
You know what? I'm with Adam. We got a quarterback who's going to play next week, and he's good, and I'm going to root for him. And the other guy is hurt, and I can't root for him because he's hurt.
You are so bipolar on this issue because what you just said is not what you said a second ago. I can get behind what you just said 100%, but that's not what you said.
What did I say?
You said Teddy's never going to play another down for the Vikings.
That has nothing to do with it, though, Brett.
What do you mean?
He's saying he's going to root for Sam Bradford because he's a starting quarterback. That has nothing to do with Teddy playing again.
Yeah.
Right, and I'm rooting for Sam Bradford too. But I almost feel like with Austin's take, he's hoping that he never plays again for the Vikings, and he has some sort of ill will towards him actually playing again for the Vikings.
I have no ill will.
That's a lie.
No, Teddy never takes another snap with the Vikings again. That's because Sam Bradford went 14-2, led us to a Super Bowl, and then repeated the next year. In which case, we'd all be okay with it. But until that, I can't get on board with Austin. I think Teddy's back and he's playing next year.
Yeah,
it's really starting to get hot.
And that's our bet. And Austin's going to owe me $100 because that's exactly what's going to happen. All right, really quick, kind of on the record thing. I just want to get how far you think the Vikings are going this season, as far as like playoff berth,
wild card
game, NFC Championship, or Super Bowl. Let's really quick, BJ. Just how far are they getting?
I think they'll make it out of the wild card round.
Okay.
I don't. Here's what I think, and I'll give a quick explanation as to why I think they get out of the wild card round. I think that Green Bay is probably going to end up winning the division, so that would give the Vikings an away game. But I don't think that any of the teams. So if we assume that, for example, Dallas and Seattle get byes, of course it's an assumption. But I think the Vikings can go down to Arizona and win a football game, for example. Or I think the Vikings can go down to Carolina and win a football game just like they did last year. Or Atlanta. I think they can compete with these teams, especially without Shanahan being there in Atlanta. So that's why I think they can get out of the wild card round. I don't think they're going to make it to the Super Bowl this year. Sorry. But I have high hopes. I have high expectations. I think this is going to be, and this is really the most important piece for any fan, they're going to be competitive from September to January, in my opinion. So that's what I'm excited about for this Viking season.
Adam.
11-5, division crown, like I said earlier. And I don't know. I'm telling you, I think this defense is going to be special. I've said it all along, and I've seen nothing to change that.
Spit it out.
I don't get too worked up over the preseason.
Super Bowl.
Just say it.
This is the year, guys.
This is the year what?
This is the year that we go to the Super Bowl.
And
lose to the Patriots on our home field.
That makes sense. I'm okay with that.
I'll take it.
All because of Willie Beavers.
Yep.
Oh,
Willie Beavers is going to stonewall Danielle Hunter.
He's going to get to the second level, and Mike Gillislee is going to rip off a 96-yard touchdown to win it. That's what's going to happen.
No, not even that. He's going to line up as eligible. They're going to send Gronk this way, and then Willie Beavers is going to go that way. And it's going to 3 seconds left. You know the heartbreak is coming, guys.
All right. Beavers! Wow. I'm going to Drew next because his record was a little lower than Austin's, and I want to try and end on a high note. Go ahead, Drew.
They're not getting past the wild card round. They might not even make it to the wild card round at 9-7. So if they make it in, they're going to lose because they're probably going to play either at Seattle, at Dallas, or at Green Bay, and they're not going to win one of those 3 games. So
okay. So that sucks, Austin.
Okay. Well, positive note. I think the Seahawks have a worse offensive line than the Vikings do, and it's not even close.
Yes. Yes.
I would say the defenses are comparable. I think the Vikings could go to Seattle and win a game. I think the Vikings could go to Dallas and win a game.
They can.
You don't think so?
No, they can't.
I think they can.
I agree with the semantics here, Austin. I think that they can definitely compete with Seattle, but Seattle's like a different world during the postseason.
Yep.
That's the only reason why I disagree with your point. But other than that, I do think the Vikings match up very well with Seattle.
I think those 2 teams match up well. I think the Cowboys are going to take a step back.
Yes.
Part of it being Zeke is going to be out week 2 to week 7. I think the Vikings are always going to have problems with the Packers just because it's Aaron Rodgers, and he always seems to do well against the Vikings. 11-5. I think the Vikings, if they're going to sweep the division, they're going to win the division pretty easy, or they're going to win it automatically. I think they get to the divisional round, and I don't know who they're going to be playing in the divisional round. I think the Giants are going to be pretty good this year.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I like the Giants.
I think the Buccaneers are going to take a step back, but not take a step back. They're not going to be as good as everyone says. They'll make it to the wild card and surprise somebody. But I really think the Giants are going to be a good team this year, and I'd be weary about the Vikings playing them, even with Eli Manning's struggles. Divisional round, lose a shocker, but everyone feels good because they played well.
Sorry, back up a second. You're worried about the Giants?
I am worried about the Giants. I think the Giants are going to be good.
Do you know what we do to Eli Manning?
I know we kick his ass, but still, I'm worried about him.
We own Eli Manning, man.
Brady Marshall.
Okay.
Hey, it's like it's hurt. They got Geno's now, backing up Eli. So
he also threw an interception the very first pass that he ever threw against the Vikings. Gerald Hodges took it to the house.
Yep.
So those Giants quarterbacks are not great against the Vikings. So I kind of like this takeoff.
I'm not worried about the Giants if we see him. Of course, we'll probably have another 41 donut if that happens. But
I can see the Giants beating us in September, but they don't have the defense and they don't have the running game.
They do.
I think they do have the defense, though. The running game, the defense is pretty solid. I mean, Olivier.
They have a top 5 safety. Top 5 safety in the league, too.
They might have a top 10 corner, too.
I think the Packers' defense is going to be trash. I don't know what makes them good this year. I really don't. What makes the Packers so good?
Aaron Rodgers. That's all they need.
Hello.
All they need is Aaron Rodgers.
But your outside linebacker,
that's all they need.
Kyler Fackrell.
It's 12 wins right there. Aaron Rodgers is 12 wins.
I don't think so. I think Aaron Rodgers gets hurt this year. I think his offensive line takes a step
He predict that.
Watch, it's going to happen. That's my bold take. You know what? Screw every other bold take. Aaron Rodgers gets hurt this year.
The film says Rodgers is getting hurt this year. I'm going with Rodgers getting hurt this year.
Wow, okay. So we're going to end the episode talking about Rodgers getting injured.
Yep.
If there's Packers fans out there, I'm sorry you had... No, I'm not. I'm not sorry you had to hear that. I'm just kidding. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up this episode. We got through a lot. Next time you see us, we'll have watched a Vikings regular season game. I'm pumped. Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate you guys. Make sure to join us Monday night immediately following the Saints game. We're going to have an awesome time. I hope we're going to be having an awesome time. Actually, if my prediction comes true, we won't be having an awesome time. And you guys will get to see Angry Brett, who used to have a regular column at VT every week. Adam remembers that back in the early days. So anyway, no, we're going to be here Monday night. Please join us, subscribe, like, share, all that, and we'll see you on Monday.
Peace, guys.
Cool.